Buenas tardes a todos. Creo que ya me pueden ver en pantalla, ¿cierto? Sí, excelente, muchas gracias. Bien, bueno, les damos una cordial bienvenida a todos ustedes innovadores en la tarde de hoy al programa de Ideatones, programa impulsado por BitLab, por Capatec y organizado y administrado por Escala Latam. En esta oportunidad, bueno, para darles un poquito, digamos, de intro a la sesión que vamos a tener hoy, realmente sesiones pasadas, de hecho la semana pasada tuvimos la oportunidad de contar con la perspectiva de nuestro consultor Jean-Marc Frangos. Él, como les comentó, él tiene vasta experiencia asesorando startups en Silicon Valley y digamos que él nos dio una buena guía de cómo elaborar un pitch que es tan importante en este tipo de programas. Nosotros dentro de este programa queremos también darles otras perspectivas y de hecho este pitch que como próximo paso todos saben que va a ser para el 13 de marzo, este pitch, digamos que ya él nos dio las guías y ya tenemos un poquito más de conocimiento, digamos, en el contenido. La sesión de hoy es un poquito diferente. La sesión de hoy también trata del pitch, también trata un poco sobre el contenido, pero un contenido más extenso. Recuerden que hay dos partes de este programa. El 13 de marzo, hay un video de 5 minutos y luego va a haber una preselección de al menos 20 equipos de ustedes para pasar ya, digamos que a la última fase del proyecto. Entonces, ese último video también tiene un contenido y ese contenido es un poquito más extenso que lo vamos a ver hoy. Queremos igual que todos tengan el conocimiento completo de toda la experiencia de un pitch, de un programa de planes de negocio, de pitch, de iniciativas, de ideatones, como lo estamos viendo ahorita. Y en la tarde de hoy vamos a tener la experiencia de una empresaria inversionista canadiense que reside en Panamá. Vasta experiencia pues enseñando entrepreneurship o emprendedurismo en Canadá. Y bueno, tiene lo que va a hacer en la tarde de hoy precisamente es darle su perspectiva, darle también tips en temas de formato y estructura y al momento de presentar qué tenemos que hacer y cómo hacerlo. Eso es lo que vamos a ver en la tarde de hoy. Entonces es un poquito diferente a la sesión de la semana pasada, un poquito más extensa. Hay algunos elementos nuevos que estamos introduciendo que digamos que no lo vamos a tocar en este primer video que vamos a hacer para la próxima semana, pero sí es algo que todos deben tener, es un tema que todos pues tienen que tener ese conocimiento, tanto para este programa de ideatones como para otras iniciativas. Al final, tanto en Panamá como en otros países de la región, incluso en Estados Unidos, estos programas pues están activos y siempre es importante que cada uno de ustedes pues tenga ese conocimiento y esté preparado para tener ese pitch que queremos, que van a querer pues para presentar sus empresas. Así que durante la presentación ustedes pueden postear sus preguntas usando el panel de la derecha donde dice Q&A y vamos a estar contestando todas sus preguntas hacia el final de la presentación. Así que, sin más, quisiera entonces presentarles a Marnie Walker, que ella es empresaria, inversionista canadiense, empresaria residente de Escala Latam también, y bueno, tiene una presentación para nosotros. Marnie, I am introducing you right now. If you can join us on stage, that would be great. Excellent. Thank you so much and welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm thrilled to be here on a Friday afternoon when everyone would rather be somewhere else.
I think that everybody will be very interested to know what you're about to present. So I was telling them that this presentation, it's not only for Ideatones. This is something that will be for life for other programs, other initiatives, and it's great that they have this knowledge and have it available and have their pitches ready, because you never know what will happen, right? When you're going to have an investor or a company interested in your business, and you have to be ready, right?
Absolutely. Yes, no,
Excellent.
the format that I'm going to present, I've just sort of developed over the years from different sources. And I think, as Naomi said, I'm an entrepreneur like you. So I have gone through the school of hard knocks, you know, doing presentations to customers, investors, employees, suppliers, and learning what works and what doesn't work. And I've come up with a formula that I'll share today that I think you can just modify the content and you can use it for many different things. And also, after I started, I did a couple of companies. I did a school bus company that I started and built a fleet of 250 buses and 300 employees. And so, you know, you learn a lot of what to do, what not to do, and, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And when I sold my businesses, I sold two of them, I started an angel investment group. And I think that is of interest to you because I not only know how to see pitches from an entrepreneur's point of view, but I've been an investor where I've actually seen hundreds of pitches where people are asking for money, seed money to help build their companies. Maple Leaf Angels, the organization that I funded, started in Canada, is similar to Escala at helping companies grow, except we actually put funding into the companies directly. And I think finally I taught at university, I taught entrepreneurship for 8 years. So I sort of had the entrepreneurial experience, I have the investor experience, and I've also had the academic experience where you're exposed to best practices from other countries, other industries, companies, and so that's sort of a composite of what I'm going to share with you today. So just so that you understand sort of where I come from, and as Naomi said, I'm from Canada. I'm a resident of Canada and Panama, so I go back and forth. So I love Panama, and as I said, I've been here over a year, and I just wish I could stay forever. So without ado, I'll start my presentation. Okay, so the presentation is basically next. So I'm going to the presentation is in 3 sections. The presentation itself, the content, and the delivery. So first I'll talk about the presentation. So first of all, make it simple, make it short. Now you only have 5 minutes for the initial pitch and 10 minutes for the final pitch. So it has to be short and it needs to be simple in communication so that it's clear and short in terms of what your delivery is. Now, in terms of the actual slides and presentation in the PowerPoint or whatever the format is, you need to use large fonts. Now that sounds obvious, but you know, in many presentations I see the fonts are very small to try to get as much information on the slide and no one understands it and they can't see it. Also use upper and lower case, much easier to read and much easier to communicate and friendlier. And also use the same type and colors throughout the presentation. Now, I'm sure you all know from your branding days that you should use the logo and your corporate colors and fonts in any presentation, in any brochure, in any materials that you have. So that just reinforces who you are and is much more effective in a pitch. The next is basically each slide, and each page or each slide, you should have one idea, and usually I say 6 words per line, 6 lines per slide, no more, and one idea. Now, you can go through a lot of slides, and the idea, especially with a short time, is you don't read the slides, you present the slides, that people read the slides, or they look at the slides, they understand the slides, so you're communicating on a written and an emotional connection because of the material, and then you comment on the slide. So you basically have 3 ways to communicate on each slide, which maximizes your time. So it's very important that you present it in the most effective way. And that also means using a great deal of, next please, of graphics, images, videos, because people respond to pictures on an emotional level. So the brain is then, you're communicating intellectually with words, you're communicating with images and ideas. And it's especially when you were stuck all day on Zooms and communication, it's nice to be able to have something that has an entertainment value as well. So always try to make it attention grabbing and simple and effective at that level. Now, in terms of the presentation, the most important sections are the beginning and the end. Now, the beginning, you need to capture the audience's attention, because you, in your first slide, your first comments, either they're going to be excited about what you're talking about, or they're going to be thinking about the next presentation or what they have to do, or doing a WhatsApp. So really important that the beginning of your presentation is very strong. Jump right in. Don't start with a bunch of niceties. Just jump right into your pitch. And the same with the end. It's important you finish the presentation. The last of the presentation is your ask. What you want. What's the objective? What's the next step? What do you want from the person you're pitching? And if you don't get to the ask part of the presentation and it's not effective, you're not going to go to the next step. So that's sort of generally how you put together the slide. The next section is content. Now, the content, this format, as I said, can be used in any situation, whether it's customers, money, pitches, employees, and the time varies depending on the emphasis and the audience and what you're trying to communicate. Now, in 5 minutes, basically, the sections that I'm suggesting that you use is the problem, the challenge, and the solution, traction, you know, what your progress is, the financial section, your team, and your ask at the end. Now, you'll notice that it's 6. I noticed that today. I do know how to add. But what I would suggest that the emphasis be on the problem, solution, and traction, and that perhaps you could reduce the finance and the team. But again, it's a personal choice, but the opportunity in this point, because you're speaking to a customer, target market, size of market, scalability is not really relevant. So, so with the time constraints, I've taken that out of that presentation, but you definitely can use it in another format. Again, the presentation varies by intent. Now, the last thing that is important here, I think, is confidentiality. I think it's obvious there, your audience, your objective, you change the content. But it's important for confidentiality. If you're pitching in an open forum to judges where the information could be obtained by competitors, it's very important that you not present any information in the pitch that could hurt you if it gets in the hands of a competitor. So that would mean that you would provide very little financial information, and it's at a high level. Similarly, in terms of the solution, you would provide high-level solutions, but you would not provide it at a granular level that someone could take your idea and run with it and knock you out. So I think it's important to understand that as well when you're preparing the content. So the first section is the problem and the challenge. Again, I would suggest this is probably the most important slide in your whole presentation. It grabs attention, and I would suggest that you present the challenge in a sentence, an experience, something that isn't just words. Again, something that communicates immediately. Also, it's important here, if you're only addressing part of the challenge, you need to make sure that you specify and demonstrate clearly part of the challenge that you're addressing. Otherwise, the corporation or the judge will be viewing it as in terms of a total solution, when in fact it's only part of a solution. And sometimes a very effective solution to part of a challenge is great and well accepted. And then if you do that, you could move on to other phases. So it's a question of, you decide what part of the challenge you're going to address, and then you clearly demonstrate, communicate that, and then the rest of the presentation relates to that. So the next, obviously, part of the presentation would be, what is your solution? And again, you would say your product, what is it? How does it function? What are its main benefits? Not all the benefits, just the top 3. And I find it's always harder to have less, so you have to prioritize and make only the most important information here. Also, how does this solution meet the challenge? How does it solve the challenge? That's important that you connect it back to the challenge. The next part of the solution is the value proposition. Again, how do you solve the problem, and what is the value that you're bringing to the corporation in solving the problem? And the other part of the value proposition is, how are you unique? How are you different? How do you do it in a better way than any other company that could be pitching for the same kind of challenge or an existing competitor? So that's what you need to communicate very clearly here. Then you do a competitive analysis. And this is a standard format for competitive analysis. You have your customer, you have your company, and your other competitors in a chart form, and always you have the characteristics. Now, the characteristics of the product aren't just products. They could be benefits. They could also be part of your company fulfillment package. How do you deal with problems? How do you deal with after-sales support? How do you do add-ons to software? So whatever characteristics of your value proposition are valuable and unique and different than the competition, you put them here. And you also show the similarities to the competition. But really what you're trying to demonstrate here is how you're different and better than the competition. Again, present the chart and then just highlight how you're unique and better than the competition. Traction. This is where the sales pitch starts, because the judges, the corporation, they will be looking to say, can they do it? Have they done it in the past? How do I know that this company can actually deliver on the solution they're talking about? And the first part of the traction, because you're pitching a corporation, so what they want to know is about your company. When was it started? What your products, clients, a testimonial? How have you done in the past? Because that gives them a good idea of how your company can deliver on their project. And the second part of the company is give them some key metrics in terms of revenue, maybe traffic, depending what your solution and your company profile is. Give them some key metrics in terms of how you're successful. And what this communicates to the corporation and the judges is, this is what I've done in the past, and this is what I can do in the project. And obviously the next piece of the traction is, what is the progress to date on the project that you're doing, the solution to the challenge. Again, describe the stage, at the prototype, if you have one, show it, or whatever you can visually, graphically to demonstrate, and then any feedback you've got in terms of market acceptance or viability, to give the corporations a good feeling that yes, my company has delivered in the past and they can deliver on this project. The next section is financial. And in the financial, because you're pitching to a corporation, you don't provide a lot of cost in forecast information. What you're presenting is your pricing model. And the pricing model varies depending on the company. It can be one-time charging, recurring charges, after-sales charges. However you're going to price the project, put it in the financials here. And then to back this up, you would provide a couple of key assumptions in terms of how you come up with this pricing model and why you think it's valid. Next, please. And also a risk analysis. Maybe identify one or two things that are risks for your solution, and then tell how you would plan to overcome the risk and why you can deal with it. This lets the judges in the corporation know that you're not all rose-colored glasses, that you're realists, that when you start out in any project, there's always things that can happen, there's always risks, and that you understand there's risks and that you understand how to deal with them quickly and effectively. Then the team. You know, as an investor at Maple Leaf Angels, we would invest in a company when the team was excellent, even if the solution wasn't as great, and stay away, because if the team is good, they can enhance, embellish, they can pivot and grow and make the solution happen. If the team is weak, it doesn't matter how good the idea is. So here, what you're trying to show in the team section is why you can do it. So you're kind of trying to show them here, yes, we can do it. The traction shows some of that I've done it in the past and I'm doing it now. And the team, you're basically communicating, this is who's going to do it for you. So the founder, the leader, the CEO, whoever's doing the presentation, whoever's leading your organization, you don't do a slide and say, oh, I'm a good communicator, because that's easy to say. But what you want to demonstrate throughout this presentation is the characteristics that investors and corporations are looking for in companies they do business with. The first few items is passion, commitment, honesty, ethics. They're looking for someone that, you know, is passionate, they know, or that you're just going to drive it home and make it happen. So you can't tell them that, but you have to demonstrate that. So in your presentation and in your content and in your delivery, show passion, show commitment, put an example that shows you're flexible. When you answer questions, be flexible. Give an example, experiential example of something that you've done, so that they understand from your actions, not your words, what you're all about. And if the leader's strong in his organization, that goes a long way for a corporation or a judge to say, wow, this team can do it. So next, you would put up a slide, and I'm suggesting something like this, that you would have a picture of your key people, what they do in the company, their role, and a little bit about their expertise, just a few words. Now, in terms of the team, there's two key functions that must be there and you should highlight, and they are business. Somebody in your organization, whether it's you or someone else, somebody in the organization in a leadership role, in your leadership team, knows how to build and start and run a company and manage a project. Very important. The other piece is technical or industry expertise. You must have both of those functions in your organization to give confidence that you can deliver. You need the business side and the industry or technical side. The other functions are important, finance, operations, etc. But those are the two key ones. And you might have 2 or 3, you don't need 5, whatever. But so this is the slide. Again, put it up and then comment particularly on the expertise of the business and the technology. Now, it isn't always possible to have all of the expertise you need in employees. And not only that, your needs change as the company grows and your project changes. You may need different expertise for this project than you did for your last project. So that's why you have advisors. Advisors are short-term, they have a specific role to perform, and they have specific expertise. So again, you would put here advisors that you can call on to help with the project to meet the challenge that you're presenting. So next, and the end of the presentation, and again, as I said, you have to make sure in the 5 minutes you get here, you talk about the ask. What do you want? And here you want the corporation to hire you to do the project. You want to continue with the project. So ask them. Don't just leave it that someone guesses. Say, okay, I would like to continue the project. So there's 2 questions that they're going to want to know before they say yes. The first one is, how are you going to do it? So I've actually got 3 slides here that talk about how you would present a project plan, because this will tell the corporation, I understand the challenge, I understand the solution, and I know how to do it. This is how I'm going to do it. So you have always have a timeline where you've got 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months, whatever. You have the challenge. What activities, what are your deliverables, and the time frame. So at the end of the first 2 weeks in this example, you can say, I promised these 3 things and I've done them. So in this way, you give the organization confidence to move forward, and often they will pay you based on phases of the project. So if you deliver the first, continue with the second phase. If you don't deliver the first phase, there's likely, and you don't recover quickly, there's a good chance you're going to lose the project, because they're going to say, well, wait a minute, this is not working out. They're not delivering the way they said they deliver. So make sure if you put a project plan up, you actually can deliver, because the organization will hold you to this. So as I said, we'll go through the next couple of slides, and you can see different presentations, different ways to present it. It doesn't matter the presentation. What's important is that you have the project milestones, the activities in the milestones, and a time frame. Next, please. This time we've actually put cost on the chart, but the final piece of the puzzle is what money do you want to do the project? Next, please. So this would be the final piece of your pitch, would be the payment plan. Can you go back, please? The payment plan. So you would have the phases of development until introduction. You could have ongoing costs, and I always suggest when you have a pricing model, you have a combination of one-time charges and recurring charges, because it means that it's a longer-term relationship with the customer, and it's financially better for you, and it's often better for the client because it's not as much of an upfront cost. So you would say phase one, related to your project plan, how much money you're asking for, same and throughout the project. And then you would add some of the ongoing costs. In many cases, if it's not an absolute number, it might be so much per month, so much per update, so much per hour for enhancements, however you choose to do the pricing. So this is basically the end of your ask. You're saying, I want the contract, this is how I'm going to do it, and this is how I'd like to be paid. So then you would basically say, thank you for your time, and I would, if you have any questions, I'd entertain it. And that's the end of your pitch. So the last part of my presentation focuses on the delivery. And I'm going to show you a slide which I'm all you're familiar with, but every time I see it, it really, I find it very daunting. 7% of people's that respond to a presentation is the presentation itself, the words, the content, which is why it's important to involve the emotional aspect of a person in the presentation. And so charts, videos, whatever you have, you don't have time for video, but you would have charts or graphics or stories or something, so that the retention of the presentation is higher, and also the emotional involvement of your audience, the company, the judges are focused on you. Now, the other thing is voice is almost 40%. So it's important with voice that you practice, that your voice is strong, that your communication is solid, and that you maximize the effectiveness of the voice. Now, the voice, when you're nervous, you tend to speak quickly. So it's important when you deliver that you try to speak slowly. And also for a woman, speaking for myself, when you get nervous, your voice goes up. So that's not good. So it's important to practice so that your voice is solid, strong, and that you're communicating well. And finally, body language. Well, it's tough on Zoom, but when you're on Zoom, it's important. Wear clothes that fit your organization, that are professional to communicate to your audience. Have a background that's not cluttered and full of junk, so that people judge you by how you look on the Zoom. Now, it's interesting. I have a friend that has a company called Infrared, and they fill potholes in the United States in roads. And the technology is infrared. So she's called her company Infrared. And her part of her presentation, she always wears red. Why? Because her logo is red, her trucks are red, her employees wear red. Red is her brand. So it's important that think about how you look on the video portion of your pitch, because it's important. You've only got 5 minutes, so use as many elements as you can. Again, the next slide is obvious. You have 5 minutes. I believe in the final presentation, there's 10 minutes. So again, it's important you not read the slides, you present them effectively as you can, and you just make a comment. So you go through the slides very quickly, communicate as much as you can, and practice. The next slide is practice. Make sure you practice and time it so that you can get to the end of your presentation in 5 minutes. If you don't finish, your presentation is lost. Now, when you practice the presentation, you need to do it out loud. And if it's virtual, you need to do it in front of the PC so you can actually see yourself presenting so you know exactly what the audience will see. It's amazing. When you think about it and say it, it's very different. The timing is different and the quality of the presentation. If you practice out loud, you get rid of a lot of problems with your presentation and the presentation will flow better. Now, after COVID, I hate to tell you, you need to practice in front of a mirror or a video camera so that you work on your body language. But right now, you only have to work from the neck up, so it's much easier. Visual, it's important for eye contact. People respond to faces and eyes. So it's important that you keep contact with the screen and your audience, that you don't read, you're not glancing out the window, that you actually are focusing on the screen. All of the ums and all here. So practice gets with a lot of this. And the other thing that I just wanted to say about the content is if something happens that it's a problem, like for example, my mic went off, you don't panic, you just fix it and you continue. Because things happen and people judge you by how effectively you handle an issue. And just keep going, because the most important thing is that you finish. Finally, questions. Now, when you answer questions, it's important that you not be defensive and you be honest. If you don't know, say you don't know. Say, oh, that's a good question, I hadn't thought of that. Or let me ask my technical people, I'll get back to you. Don't make something up because you always get caught. And be brief, and also be prepared for trick questions. Often a judge or a corporation will ask you a question that's very difficult or that is almost negative. And they're doing that to see how you respond. Are you flexible? How do you respond to a difficult question? How do you respond to challenges? So it's important to even think about questions in advance and be prepared for something totally different, and then just be yourself, be honest, and answer the question. So that concludes my presentation. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Thank you, Marnie. That was great advice. I don't know about, I think that all the audience will agree with me that, well, it was great because you didn't only included content, but also, you know, about soft skills that they should keep in mind when they're doing their videos. Even that this first round, we're doing it virtually. It's important, all the tips that you just gave us. So we'll open now for questions from the audience. We will start here. Hi, do you recommend presenting the project risk with options to reduce them?
Yes, but you have such a short time. I would really maybe present 2 risks very quickly, and then how you would deal with it. Because I think it's important that you communicate to the judge and the corporation that you know the project won't go the way you planned. Nothing does. No business plan, no plan. In my experience, as soon as the ink is dry, as soon as you finish the presentation and start on the implementation, you have to pivot. You always have to change. So I think this will communicate that you understand there's risks and you're flexible and astute enough to be able to recognize them and deal with them quickly. So you only really need to deal with 1 or 2. You don't have much time, but you need to at least communicate that there will be risks and you know how to deal with them.
Excellent. Thank you, Jair and Marnie. Okay, here's another one about the finances. For a new opportunity, would you recommend estimating a market size, at least to communicate the potential?
Well, I left market out because I thought that you were presenting a solution to a specific challenge, in which case the corporation would basically pay you for your work. So you have presented a pricing model only. Now, if you were presenting a new business opportunity where there were multiple customers in a different audience, absolutely. You would include the market section where you would talk about your target market, the size of the market, the penetration you're wanting. You would have an implementation, a go-to-market strategy in terms of how you plan to do that. And in the financials, you would then also have metrics to match. How many customers, what penetration, how fast it is, break even, time to market. There would be a whole section related to that. Now, if you're interested in that, I do have slides that include those sections of a presentation that I can provide to Naomi that we can include online as well. That would be for a broader application than this particular one that I'm talking about today.
Thank you, Marnie. I also wanted to comment about the market size. Normally it is a part of a pitch. It is a part of the business plan, a pitch, and things like that. But in this first round, we're not asking for the market size for the video pitch because of the time, just like Marnie mentioned. And also, I mean, you will need it later on because, of course, we want these solutions to have global impact at some point. Of course, we want the corporates to be sponsors and all that. But later on, what we would like for this to happen is for them to have global impact. So yes, the market size will be important then. Not in this short video, it's still not needed. But yes, like Marnie mentioned, we can provide more information later on, or the slides that she mentioned.
Now, the other thing I might say about market size is the world is not your market. When you do market size and target market, you need to be very specific. Because if you say my target is Panama, my target is the United States, it's useless. You need to say specifically what is the market is in sub-market sections to be meaningful. So just, when you get to that stage, you've got to define it. You have to do financials based on it, very specific. Because the more specific the target marketing, the more validity you have in your pitch.
Excellent. So yes, Andy, we will provide that information. And Marnie can help us with the content as well. Okay, we have a question from Marco. If you can share with us an example of few words of how to connect the audience in the start of our presentation, what words would it be?
Well, it depends on your product. For example, I saw a pitch recently, and it was about putting together a platform to connect farmers with the marketplace. And so it's interesting because, you can say a platform to connect farmers with marketplaces. But how do you show that? Well, what you show is, a farmer who's got produce in one picture and they can't get it to market, so it's rotting in the field, right? And then you show another one where the food is, in the market. So you can do things like that. Where you have a before-after picture, you can have a picture of, if you're presenting a solution for, lining up in a bank. People don't like to line up in a bank or go online. You could perhaps have, a waiting room full of people, sleeping, or cartoons, so that they demonstrate what the real emotional problem is, and then just say it in one or two words. Like, for example, my school bus company, I started it because I focused on special needs children, and no one wanted to transport them because they were difficult. So, you need to synthesize it down to something that's very real and emotional, and then you can have a picture of children.
Excellent. Thank you, Marnie. Great example. Do you want to mention to them a little bit about your school bus company?
Well, I did mention a little bit at the beginning of my my presentation, but I started the business out with nothing. I had $500 in the bank. I was broke. I was divorced. I had a house, but I had a big mortgage. So basically, I didn't, you know, I had nothing to lose, and I had a great opportunity. And I think the biggest thing is the opportunity. Have an opportunity. I knew the head of the transportation at a school district, and they couldn't find anyone to transport these difficult children, autistic children, blind children, all kinds of children that had special needs. Even gifted children are very difficult to transport. They're probably the most difficult to transport. So he gave me a small contract for 8 buses. So it was no risk to him, but it was a great opportunity for me. So I kept my corporate job for 5 years. I worked in technology. And I started and grew this business organically. And at the end, I ended up with 250 buses and 300 employees. And I had a very sweet offer from a large multinational company out of the UK. And I chose to finance my business with debt. I was the only shareholder. And so basically, you know, I had all the risk and all the rewards. So that was sort of my model. And my expertise, what made me special was the culture in my company that I organized, and my employees and the way we operated was totally different than all the other corporations. And so what we focused on was the children and the drivers, matching the children and drivers. That was our unique selling proposition. Everybody had buses, and quite frankly, I didn't know anything about buses. But I focused on the children and the drivers. So we were able to provide a service that other people couldn't provide because they were focusing on the bus. They weren't focusing on the kids. So that became our culture. And so what happened, we were 8 and then we were 15, and we doubled pretty much every other year. And that's hard. I couldn't double every year because I found I couldn't handle the growth. It was unbelievable. And you have to make sure that you don't overcommit, that you can actually deliver what you say you're going to deliver. So we just kept growing, and it always was a question of, once I built the brand and the reputation, the company's name was Student Express. My competition said, well, you know, what it means she's growing and we're reducing, we're being downsized, and she's getting all the business. Well, they said, well, she's the expert. And they said, oh, no, we can do that. Well, it was too late because I already had the reputation, I had the brand, I had the expertise, and they couldn't copy the culture. They couldn't create it. So I continued to grow and take business from my competitors for years. I built the business in 14 years to 15 million revenue through 250 buses, and with no money. So it's all possible. It's a question, if you want it, you can do it. So I think this whole corporate synergy pitch is fantastic because it gives you an opportunity to get someone to fund some very important technology that's going to help this corporation grow. And depending on how what the solution is, it can be expanded beyond the corporation. But that also would be part of the negotiations with the corporation in terms of how they want you to handle. They may want exclusive rights to the technology, or they may be prepared to be a partnership with you or a license agreement. You'll have to work through all that issue as you get into the final negotiation with the company. But it's a tremendous opportunity, and that's what you need, is an opportunity. And then just take it, grab it and run with it, because that's all you need to be successful, is an opportunity and the desire to make it happen.
Excellent. Thank you, Marnie. Great advice. And thank you for sharing more in detail about your company. It's a great success story. I always love hearing about it. Okay, guys, if you have more questions, si las quieren poner las preguntas en español, también las pueden poner, yo las traduzco. Let's see if we have any more questions. Okay, doesn't look like we don't have any more questions. But
it's Friday night, everyone's tired.
It's Friday, right? Oh, I have a question I see in the chat. Go ahead. What is the best way to win a pitch?
Well, I think the best way is you know, it's I hate to say it, but it is all about the sizzle. So in other words, your pitch has to be absolutely stellar. It needs to be well constructed, well practiced, and include everything that the judges are looking for. And that's what I've tried to share with you today, because you know, they can only judge you for how you deliver. And unfortunately, if you don't get their attention and you don't have their interest, this is almost like a taste test. You've got 5 minutes to get them excited, to taste and get excited about your project. So it's got to be absolutely, like I say, the sizzle on the steak. It's got to dance. Because if they're interested and they want to know more, then you have an opportunity to give more detail and substance to your presentation. So I would suggest you kind of follow the template, put this, you know, and practice your speech, practice everything, so that you make it drop dead, and make it interactive, make it fun. You know, people are looking at, you know, other 20 pitches, you know, like, as I said, I've seen hundreds of pitches in my day. You know, and so the ones you remember are the ones that, wow, they grab you right away. So you want to grab their attention, involve them, make them be excited about it. And, you know, you have to be excited. So, you know, get pumped up.
Excellent. Thank you, Marnie. Another question from Andy. I understand this pitch is going to be recorded and sent. This is not a traditional way to present, correct? I guess that I can answer
No,
that.
it's not a traditional way. And quite honestly, it's, you know, it's a first round. And so that's the reason for it, because in the final pitch, it's in person and you'll have a question and answer period, which is very important. And I think it's also important that it's live enough that that you're able to communicate some of your own passion and commitment in real time. Even on the video, it's very effective rather than just a video, because we've seen so many videos these days. But unfortunately, in this process, that's the first stage. So, you know, do the best drop dead you can in the video, and when you get to the final stage, then you can just pour it on.
Excellent. Thank you, Marnie. And I will add a little bit more to that as well. Yes, this is not a traditional way. We're doing this because of different factors. We have more than 200 proposals from you guys. And, you know, unfortunately, we are on virtual, and we have, this is like Marnie mentioned, this is a pre-selection of all the proposals for the corporates. However, all the pitches will be available for review for the corporates, all of them. So like Marnie said, do the best you can. And this is only the first round, because at the end, we will have the final presentation where you will present.
No, I mean, I understand too. There's another session coming up where there'll be some individual coaching, so that, you know, myself and some other people can review the pitch to give you some suggestions.
Yes.
But I think the feedback would be you know, where maybe you present a portion of the presentation, and then, you know, we focus on the delivery and content. So
right, I was gonna say that at the end we will have a coaching session for those of you that would like to review your pitches or the content that you're preparing for the pitches with Marnie, with Constanza, with Isaac, with Jean-Marc. We will have them available for you on this Tuesday. You will receive the invitation by tomorrow, and same time, 4 o'clock starting. And we will be, it will be on a first come, first serve basis. It will be individual time for you to review your content with them. So it will be a good opportunity to review, you know, the format that you're preparing, if you have questions and things like that for this first video pitch. Okay, we have another question from Christy. Is it okay to put the cost even if the scope is not completely defined, or is it understood to be referential?
I'm sorry, you mean you must put a pricing model in, even if it's tentative? Even if you haven't worked out the numbers, you should at least have the structure that says so much for development, so much for installation. And you might say, you know, these are preliminary numbers, they will be revised. but you need to at least demonstrate what your pricing model is, and you could even do a range, because you have to, you need to explain how the pricing model is going to work. And I think also it's important that you understand how the pricing model is going to work. And as I said, you know, I think it should likely be a combination of ongoing, recurring, and one time. That's the most effective type of pricing model. But so if you don't know the real numbers, put in what you can, but put the structure in.
I was gonna mention that the pricing model, if you don't have it yet, at least have an idea. It will help definitely, but it's not mandatory to have the final pricing model or anything like that included in that 5-minute video pitch. Not at this stage.
No, but I think the other thing, if you're putting preliminary numbers in, you should put on the slide that they're preliminary, so that if you get to the final stage, it can be revised. You don't want to be committed to something that you don't show as preliminary, because they might say, oh, well, you told me it was $10,000, now it's $20,000. You know, it's lack of credibility. This way you say, well, it was preliminary, you know, and, you know, after further research, this is the final number. So just put preliminary on the slide and make sure you say these are preliminary numbers. But the structure should be pretty sound.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Let me review the chat real quick. Sometimes the questions are popped up in here. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions, guys. I'm going to say this part in Spanish, Marnie.
No problem.
Just the next steps for the session on Tuesday and things like that. Ok, para todos, esta sesión obviamente va a estar grabada. Se la vamos a compartir como las otras sesiones también por correo electrónico para que la puedan revisar. Como les mencionamos anteriormente, parte de los contenidos que vimos hoy obviamente son ya para las presentaciones finales. Sin embargo, bueno, incluimos, también reforzamos sobre los puntos más importantes del video pitch que tenemos que entregar para la próxima semana. Y también, bueno, tomar nota un poco de las recomendaciones que nos dio Marnie sobre, bueno, el tono de la voz y cómo manejarse con los slides, los tiempos, todo eso es importante para que lo tomen en consideración. Y bueno, resumiendo entonces, nos veríamos nuevamente para una sesión ya exclusiva para mirar los contenidos que ya ustedes van a ir trabajando el día martes a las 4 de la tarde. El equipo aquí les va a enviar pues las invitaciones y el acceso. Y un poco la metodología de la sesión es que cada uno de los asesores, Marnie, Constanza, Isaac y Jean-Marc, van a estar disponibles para contestar sus preguntas, ¿ok? Así que la idea de la sesión es que vengan ya un poco preparados, estructurados con respecto al contenido del pitch, porque como saben, bueno, el viernes, el 13, no sé qué fecha es, creo que es viernes, hay que entregarlo. Entonces también se hará disponible el formulario donde van a poder poner el link. Puede ser un link de WeTransfer, puede ser un link de YouTube. Y la idea es que, bueno, que incluyan su pitch con una breve descripción del contenido. Y vamos a hacerlo así de simple en estos momentos para, pues, ya ustedes han, digamos que materializado un poco, han estado ya homologando con las diferentes corporaciones y pudiendo entonces formular un poco mejor sus soluciones. Así que eso es un poco, les quería comentar sobre los próximos pasos. Si tienen preguntas, por supuesto, pueden siempre acceder a nuestro chat en la página web de Ideatores Capatec, por correo electrónico también. Y ya, básicamente, Marnie, do you have any final recommendations?
No, just good luck to all of you, and I'm excited to see the final presentations.
Some of you are saying that they want to see to review the slides again and the content. I think that it was a great advice about, you know, the voice and the postures and all that. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, and as I said, I'll share the slides. You know, for the market and the financial, I don't know whether you want them now, but I'll make sure that you have them later so that you know what to put in the market, because the financials change and the market changes if you're going beyond the corporate focus.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much, Marnie. It was a pleasure to have you as always. And a todos, que tengan buen fin de semana y estamos a la orden. Muchas gracias a todos por la asistencia.
Take care.
You too.